What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you some early access impressions for Windrose, which launched into early access just a few days ago. And after I had taken a look at the demo previously, I enjoyed that quite a bit, and I knew I wanted to jump in for the early access period here. With that said, I do need to inform you that I was given an early key to this by the publisher. I actually had access to it a little bit before it launched into early access, but it took me a while to actually cover it because I was very busy this week. But I will say it was mostly worth the wait, as it has improved already from the demo quite a bit, and it's a very fun experience as is, but I will also say that it is very early access for sure. There's a really compelling experience already in there, but I also think they have a long way to go, and when this game is done, it will be really, really fun. But what it actually is at its core is a sort of survival crafting pirate game in which you can either play by yourself or with other people to track down the game's main story, which seems to revolve, as pretty much always is the case with these types of games, a mysterious artifact causing things like the dead to rise and all sorts of other problems in your procedurally generated island chain. But let's rip the band-aid off and talk about some of the stuff that I think needs improved straight away. Honestly, the combat balancing is very rough at the beginning of the game. Thankfully, there are combat difficulty settings, and you can adjust them as you please, and you're probably going to want to get over that early slump. You will just get obliterated by stuff at first, which really sucks because if you're not playing with other people, you are going to be heavily outnumbered in some of the early missions that require you to get through them in order to unlock some more of the progression. There's also a handful of other things I think they could tweak. Once you finally make it to like the main city area, Tortuga, you'll have some trouble finding the person you can actually sell to because they're not actually in the main city, which just seems odd because that's where most of the other like vendor type characters are. I also think just adding the ability to actually pause the game when you are in solo offline mode would be super helpful for people like myself personally. So long story short, yes, there are a few problems. This is early access, but looking past those things, I think it is already a good game. And let's talk a little bit about that now. So as I sort of just mentioned there, you can play either with people or on like your own offline local thing. Before you do that, you'll be asked to create your character or your pirate. There's a pretty decent little character creation there, and then you can mess around with the difficulty settings and everything of the island chain you would like to drop yourself into, though that map itself is procedurally generated and made up of about 3 or so biomes that are currently in the game. However, the main story and everything is already fully implemented, so if you wanted to dedicate the time to it, you could absolutely play through the entirety of the story experience that is currently available already. They are estimating that that's going to be somewhere between 50 and 70 hours. Personally, I will save that full experience for the full release of the game, but still pretty neat. And across that, at least currently, there's already about 30 or so procedurally generated islands. They all have a bunch of point of interest. There are 3 ships you can make and sail around. The survival crafting is fully functional. You can build and craft all sorts of stuff, upgrading your gear as you go, giving you the ability to customize and even build ships and stuff. And they've already got the basics of things like character progression, as well as the introduction of the main town and factions and everything. So, simply put, there is a lot to do and get up to, but let's take it a little bit farther. So, as the game starts, you get attacked over an artifact which inadvertently saves your life, but at the cost of something, though that is a little mysterious at the start of the game. You wake up stranded on a little island and need to start survival crafting your way into some better gear and everything before someone shows up to inform you of where you can rescue the rest of your crew and get your hands on your first ship. That's going to take a little bit of doing into itself. However, once you manage to do all of that, you'll find yourself sailing a proper ship as opposed to just a little rowboat. And that's probably about the time you'll start taking on things like the side quests as well as introducing character progression. As I mentioned, combat itself isn't like super stellar right now, but there are things like guns and everything, as well as different types of melee weapons, though it is a pretty basic like attack and stamina system at the moment. As you eventually level up, which is a bit of a slow process, you'll start gaining attribute and talent points. Attributes increase your damage with the various types of weaponry you can get a hold of, and then you can also increase things like your health, stamina, and critical chance, whereas talents are Obviously a little more perk related, allowing you to specialize in the type of thing you want to do. Like so for this guy I'm making, I wanted him to use rapiers. So that is naturally what I went ahead and leaned into properly. But once you finally get your proper ship as well as your base going, you can start doing everything else, which is exploring, making discoveries, which gives you access to more and more stuff to build and craft in order to make either your own base or simply track down the exploration. The islands are things you can explore. They have their own points of interest, as I mentioned, and often those come with things like discoveries and the acquisition of trade goods and things to sell in, say, Tortuga. And you can even find some mysterious things to fight, such as mainly undead or other pirates. And you're going to do that by taking your chosen approach to combat as far as it can go. Now, there are, thankfully, at least some things like different armor sets and whatnot that can come with set bonuses that can mix that up. You can also make all sorts of different food types, which will provide different buffs as you explore and get to the bottom of the islands and their little side quests, and even dig up some treasure, as it were. But that is, of course, only one part of this, because outside of customizing all of your base and everything on the islands themselves, you also have your ship, as I mentioned. Once you kind of go through the introductory phase with that thing, you can, in fact, build your own ships, or customize the one you've already got, which you're going to need to do initially just to outfit it with things like cannons and everything, which are going to allow you to take part in ship-to-ship combat. I will say the ship battles are maybe a little too frequent. You are often outnumbered, especially if you're playing solo, by an order of several ships compared to just yours, and that is once again a situation where in the early game, even if you are sticking to the area you are supposed to be in, you can get outnumbered really easily, which can be a little more frustrating. Which, if anything, I guess promotes liberal use of those difficulty options that I mentioned, but probably, again, not exactly the best way to handle that, and something I hope they address over the course of the early access period. So kind of bringing that all together for a quick first impressions. Mostly pretty good, as expected. I had a lot of fun with this. They're clearly doing a lot of fun stuff and they are moving in the right direction, but I think there is, again, a long road to go as some of this stuff gets tightened up and, added on to that kind of thing. Now, as for what to expect over the course of early access, while some of this stuff will of course be contingent on player feedback and what they choose to do from there, what they have already committed to adding over the course of this period is more biomes for starters. There are only 3 in the game currently, as well as things like boss fights, enemies, more usable ships, loot to go with them, and adding like additional story arcs via things like side quests and everything as they go. But to wrap this up, I would say this is a game that will definitely be really great when it is fully done, and I'll be keeping an eye on it as it moves through its early access phases, and I'll definitely be jumping into the final version, of course. But as for today, I do think that is pretty much going to do it. Certainly hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, by all means, like, comment, subscribe, all the YouTube jazz. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.